Sometime around 1864, in the midst of a war that was tearing a nation apart, a fragile baby boy was born on a small farm in Diamond, Missouri. His name was George Washington Carver, but at birth, he had no claim to freedom, no protection under the law. He was born a slave on the plantation of Moses and Susan Carver. His parents were not seen as people, but as property, and like so many enslaved children, his future was uncertain, teetering between survival and oblivion. But war brought chaos, and with chaos came terror. One fateful night, a group of ruthless raiders, likely Quantrill's raiders known for their brutal attacks, stormed the Carver farm. They weren't looking for money or livestock. They were after something far more valuable: human lives. In an instant, George, his mother, and his sister were stolen away, taken into the dark, their fates unknown. Desperate to get them back, Moses Carver sent a man to track them down, but it was already too late. After days of searching, only baby George was found, abandoned and alone. His mother and sister were never seen again, lost forever to the cruelty of slavery. It was a painful, irreversible loss, one that would shape George's understanding of life, hardship, and resilience. When slavery was abolished in 1865, George and his brother James were finally free, at least in name. The Carvers, no longer their masters, raised them as their own. But while James took to farm work, George was different. Fragile, sickly, and often too weak for the hard labor of the fields, he found himself drawn not to farming, but to nature itself. While other children played, George wandered the woods, marveling at the plants, insects, and soil. He would talk to the flowers, study their growth, and observe the way the world worked. It was as if the earth itself was his teacher, whispering secrets only he could hear. This passion, this deep curiosity, would one day make him one of the most influential agricultural scientists in history. But there was one problem. Education was not meant for black children in Missouri. Schools were deeply segregated and opportunities were scarce. But George was relentless. He heard of a small school for black children 10 miles away in Neosho. Most would have found the distance too daunting, but not George. Barefoot and alone, he made the journey. Not once, not twice, but every single day. When he arrived, he had nowhere to stay and no money to his name, but he was resourceful. He found shelter with Marion and Andrew Watkins, a kind black couple who let him work in exchange for food and a place to sleep. He had little, but he had his dream. "I wanted to know the secrets of the universe," Carver would later say. And as that young boy sat in a dimly lit classroom, eager to soak up every bit of knowledge, he was just beginning to unlock them. This relentless drive for education would carry him far beyond Neosho, leading him to become one of the most brilliant minds of his time. From the moment George Washington Carver set his sights on education, he faced walls of rejection, yet he refused to accept no as the final answer. Born into a world that denied him the right to learn, he embarked on a long and grueling journey in search of knowledge, leaving home as a young boy with nothing but a dream and an unbreakable will. He traveled from town to town, often sleeping outdoors, walking miles on foot and knocking on school doors, only to be turned away because of the color of his skin. In Missouri and later Kansas, he worked tirelessly, washing clothes, cooking, and laboring on farms, just to afford a place to sleep and the chance to sit in a classroom. The hardships were relentless, but so was Carver. His determination led him to apply to Highland University in Kansas, where at first he was accepted. But the moment the school discovered he was black, they cruelly rescinded their offer, slamming the door in his face. It was yet another devastating blow, yet Carver refused to let racism dictate his future. Instead of despairing, he pressed forward, continuing to educate himself independently, reading every book he could find, and searching for another school willing to give him a chance. Finally, in 1890, his persistence paid off when he was accepted into Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa. At first, his passion led him to study art and painting, where he excelled in botanical illustrations, capturing the beauty of plants and flowers with a delicate, almost scientific precision. But one of his professors saw something even greater in him, an innate curiosity for the natural world that extended far beyond a paintbrush. She encouraged him to pursue agricultural science, believing that his mind had the potential to revolutionize farming. Inspired by this guidance, Carver transferred to Iowa State Agricultural College, now Iowa State University, where he didn't just break barriers, he shattered them. He became the first Black student at the institution, and later, its first Black faculty member as a researcher in botany and agriculture. In a time when racial segregation and discrimination were deeply entrenched in American society, Carver's achievements were nothing short of historic. At Iowa State, he delved into groundbreaking agricultural research, focusing on one of the biggest problems plaguing Southern farmers: soil depletion. For generations, farmers had grown cotton relentlessly, stripping the land of its nutrients and leaving their fields barren. Carver discovered that by rotating crops, alternating between cotton and soil-enriching plants like peanuts, sweet potatoes, and legumes, farmers could restore their land's fertility, leading to healthier crops and more bountiful harvests. His revolutionary findings caught national attention, marking the beginning of his rise as one of the most brilliant agricultural scientists of his time. By 1896, his reputation had reached the ears of Booker T. Washington, the visionary leader of Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. Washington saw Carver not just as a scientist, but as someone who could uplift and empower Black farmers, helping them break free from poverty through education and sustainable agriculture. Carver accepted the offer and dedicated the next 47 years of his life to teaching, researching, and transforming Southern farming practices. At Tuskegee, Carver became much more than a professor. He was a mentor, an innovator, and a guiding light for thousands of students and farmers alike. His mission was to teach poor Black farmers how to become self-sufficient, showing them how to grow nutrient-rich crops that could both feed their families and enrich their soil. He revolutionized farming in the South with practical, science-backed solutions, ensuring that struggling farmers could thrive instead of merely survive. Through his groundbreaking research, he revolutionized agriculture with some of the most remarkable discoveries in history. He introduced crop rotation, teaching farmers how to restore their soil by alternating crops rather than exhausting it with continuous cotton farming. His genius also extended to peanuts. Though he didn't invent peanut butter, he unlocked over 300 innovative uses for them, from dyes and plastics to fuel, soap, and even synthetic rubber. But his ingenuity didn't stop there. He uncovered more than 100 uses for sweet potatoes, transforming them into products like flour, ink, adhesives, and a rubber substitute. And with crops like pecans and cowpeas, he developed countless ways to maximize their potential, enhancing agricultural sustainability throughout the South. Carver's work was nothing short of revolutionary, but what truly set him apart was his selflessness. He never sought personal wealth, refusing to patent most of his discoveries because he believed that science should benefit all of humanity, not just the wealthy few. He famously turned down high-paying job offers, including one from Thomas Edison, who offered him a lucrative salary to work in his laboratory. But Carver declined, choosing instead to serve his community and dedicate his life to education, science, and humanitarian work. His contributions laid the foundation for modern sustainable farming, changing the way agriculture was practiced in America. But beyond his scientific genius, Carver left behind an even greater legacy, one of resilience, wisdom, and generosity. He proved that determination could defy prejudice, that education could uplift even the poorest, and that one person, armed with knowledge and a heart full of purpose, could truly change the world. As George Washington Carver's groundbreaking work in agriculture spread beyond the fields of Tuskegee, his influence reached some of the most powerful figures of the 20th century. Leaders, industrialists, and visionaries sought his wisdom, recognizing that his knowledge could transform not just farming, but industries and nations. One of his most notable admirers was Theodore Roosevelt, the former U.S. president who turned to Carver for advice on improving American agriculture. Roosevelt, known for his deep commitment to conservation and farming, saw in Carver a mind capable of solving some of the country's biggest agricultural challenges. Carver's research on soil preservation, crop rotation, and alternative crops provided Roosevelt with strategies that would later influence national farming policies. His expertise also caught the attention of Henry Ford, the legendary automobile magnate. Ford, fascinated by the potential of plant-based materials, worked closely with Carver to explore the production of rubber from crops like peanuts and sweet potatoes. This research was particularly crucial during World War II, when rubber shortages threatened industries and military supplies. Together, Carver and Ford envisioned a world where plants could be used not just for food, but for fuel, plastics, and even car parts. Carver's wisdom transcended agriculture and industry. It even reached the realm of philosophy and social reform. Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of India's independence movement, personally sought Carver's guidance on nutrition and sustainable farming. In a world where millions suffered from malnutrition and food scarcity, Gandhi believed that Carver's agricultural methods could help India become more self-sufficient. Through their correspondence, Carver advised Gandhi on diet, suggesting peanuts and other nutrient-rich crops as vital sources of protein for his vegetarian lifestyle. Their exchange of ideas reflected a shared belief that science should serve humanity, particularly the poor and marginalized. In 1921, Carver's reputation as an agricultural expert led him to an extraordinary moment, testifying before the United States Congress. He stood before lawmakers to advocate for tariffs on imported peanuts, arguing that American farmers needed protection from foreign competition. Though many called him the Peanut Man, this title barely scratched the surface of his true contributions. Carver was not just promoting peanuts, he was fighting to uplift small farmers, empower black communities, and revolutionize American agriculture. Despite his global fame, Carver remained deeply humble and selfless. While other scientists pursued wealth and patents, Carver lived simply, often wearing worn-out clothes and giving away his earnings to help students and fund research at Tuskegee Institute. Money never interested him. Knowledge, service, and innovation were his true rewards. His lifelong dedication to science and humanitarian work earned him numerous honors. In 1923, he was awarded the prestigious Spingarn Medal from the NAACP, recognizing his invaluable contributions to science and agriculture. Universities and institutions showered him with honorary doctorates, though he always preferred to be called professor rather than doctor. In 1941, Time magazine even named him one of the 100 most important Americans of the 20th century, a testament to the lasting impact of his work. Perhaps the greatest tribute came in 1943, the year of his passing. Recognizing his immense contributions, President Franklin D. Roosevelt authorized the creation of the George Washington Carver National Monument in Missouri, the first national monument ever dedicated to an African American. It was a rare honor, cementing Carver's legacy as one of the most remarkable figures in American history. On January 5, 1943, at the age of 78, George Washington Carver passed away, leaving behind a world forever changed by his discoveries, teachings, and kindness. His epitaph reads, "He could have added fortune to fame, but caring for neither, he found happiness and honor in being helpful to the world." And indeed, that is how Carver lived. Not for wealth, not for status, but for the simple, profound joy of making the world a better place. His story is not just one of scientific brilliance, but of perseverance, humility, and the unwavering belief that knowledge should serve humanity. Carver's life is a testament to the power of curiosity, determination, and selflessness. But what if he had chosen a different path? What if he had patented his inventions and become a wealthy man? Would his impact have been greater or smaller? And most importantly, how can we apply his lessons today? How can we use our skills, no matter how small, to make the world a better place? Let me know your thoughts. What inspires you most about George Washington Carver's story?